What God gives cannot be permanently taken by anyone, is not just a comforting idea, it is a powerful truth that shifts the way you see everything that has happened to you. When you go through pain, especially at the hands of someone who manipulates, controls, and drains you emotionally, it can feel like something inside you has been permanently damaged. It can feel like your peace, your identity, your confidence, everything that once made you feel whole has been taken away for good. But that feeling, as real as it is not the final truth. It is only a temporary shadow cast over something that still exists deep within you. When God places something in your life, whether it is peace, purpose, strength, or identity, it is rooted in something eternal, not something fragile. Human beings can influence your emotions, they can create chaos around you, and they can even make you question your own reality. But they do not have the authority to erase what God has placed inside your soul. They can only distract you from it. They can only make you forget, for a moment, who you truly are. Think about how a storm works. When a storm comes, the sky darkens, the winds roar, and everything feels unstable. But the storm does not destroy the sky, it only covers it. The sky remains exactly where it has always been, untouched in its essence, even if it is hidden for a time. In the same way, your peace has not been destroyed. It has been covered by pain, confusion, and emotional exhaustion. But covering is not the same as removing. What God has placed within you still exists, waiting to be revealed again. The reason this truth matters so deeply is because it changes your role in your own healing. If something was truly taken from you permanently, then you would be powerless to ever get it back. But if it was never truly taken, only buried, only overshadowed, then your journey is not about recreating yourself from nothing. It is about rediscovering what was always yours. It is about reconnecting with a peace that never left you, even when you felt completely lost. This is why people who have gone through deep emotional pain often come out stronger than before. It is not because the pain made them stronger on its own, but because it forced them to dig deeper than they ever had before. It forced them to go beyond surface-level confidence and discover a strength that is rooted in something unshakable. That unshakable foundation is what God placed within them from the beginning. A narcissist, or anyone who thrives on control and manipulation, operates by creating illusions. They want you to believe that your value depends on them, that your peace is something they can give or take, that your identity is something they can shape. And for a time, it may feel true. You may feel like you've lost yourself completely. But that is only because your focus has been pulled away from the source of your strength. It does not mean the source is gone. God's gifts are not like human approval. They are not temporary, conditional, or dependent on someone else's behavior. They are constant, even when your circumstances are not. Your peace, for example, is not meant to come from how someone treats you. It is meant to come from a deeper place that cannot be controlled by another person. When someone disrupts that peace, they are not taking it away. They are only interfering with your ability to feel it clearly. And this is where restoration begins. Not when everything around you changes, but when something within you starts to awaken again. It starts when you realize that you are not as broken as you thought you were. It starts when you have a moment of clarity, even a small one, where you feel a sense of calm or strength that you thought was gone forever. That moment is proof that what God gave you is still there. As you continue to heal, you will begin to notice something incredible. The same peace you thought was lost will start to return, but it will feel different. It will feel deeper, more grounded, less dependent on external validation. That is because you are no longer experiencing it on the surface. You are experiencing it from its true source. And once you reach that place, it becomes much harder for anyone to disturb it again. This truth also brings a sense of justice that does not rely on revenge or external outcomes. You do not need to prove anything to the person who hurt you. You do not need them to acknowledge what they did. Their inability to understand your worth does not change your worth. What God has placed within you remains intact, regardless of who failed to recognize it. So even if right now you feel like something has been taken from you, remind yourself that feelings are not always facts. What you are experiencing is the effect of what happened, not the definition of who you are. Your peace is still yours. Your strength is still yours. Your identity is still yours. And most importantly, they are all still under God's authority, not anyone else's. What God gives cannot be permanently taken by anyone, and that means your story is not one of loss. It is one of rediscovery. It means that no matter how far you feel from who you used to be, you are never truly separated from what was placed inside you. And as you continue forward step by step, you are not becoming someone new. You are returning to someone real, someone whole, someone whose peace was never truly gone, only waiting to rise again. Your peace was never theirs to take. It belongs to God. This truth cuts through one of the deepest wounds left behind after emotional manipulation, because one of the most painful beliefs you can carry is that someone else had the power to control your inner world. When you've been in a situation where someone constantly disrupted your emotions, created confusion, and made you feel unstable, it can seem like they held your peace in their hands. It can feel like they took it, broke it, and walked away with something that you can never fully recover. But that belief is not reality. It is the result of what you were made to feel, not what is actually true. Peace is not something that originates from another person. It does not come from how someone treats you, how they speak to you, or how they choose to behave. Those things can influence your emotions, yes, but they are not the source of your peace. True peace comes from something far deeper, something rooted in your connection with God, and because of that, it is not something another human being has the authority to take from you. They may disturb it, they may cloud it, they may make it harder for you to feel it, but they cannot own it, and they cannot remove it from your life. What often happens in toxic or manipulative situations is that your sense of peace becomes tied to the behavior of the other person. You begin to feel calm only when they are kind, and anxious when they are distant or critical. Over time, your emotional state becomes dependent on their actions, and without realizing it, you start to believe that they control how you feel. This creates a false sense of power in their hands. It makes it seem like they are the source of your stability, when in reality, they are only influencing your awareness of it. This is how the illusion forms. It is not that your peace was taken, but that your connection to it was disrupted. It is like having a light within you that is suddenly covered by layers of doubt, fear, and confusion. The light is still there, shining just as it always has, but you can't see it as clearly anymore. And because you can't see it, it feels like it's gone. But something being hidden is not the same as something being lost. Understanding that your peace belongs to God changes everything, because it shifts the focus away from what someone did to you and back to what still exists within you. It reminds you that your inner calm is not something fragile that can be stolen by another person's behavior. It is something sacred, something protected, something that remains even when you feel disconnected from it. When you begin to accept this truth, you also begin to take your power back, not in a loud or aggressive way, but in a quiet, steady realization that you are not as vulnerable as you once believed. You start to see that the chaos you experienced was external, even if it affected you deeply internally. And slowly, you begin to separate who you are from what you went through. There is also a level of freedom that comes with this understanding. If your peace truly belonged to someone else, then you would always be at risk of losing it again. You would always be dependent on external circumstances to feel okay. But if your peace belongs to God, then it is anchored in something unchanging. It means that no matter who comes into your life or leaves your life, your foundation remains the same. This doesn't mean that you won't feel hurt or affected by people. You are human, and your emotions are real. But it does mean that those emotions do not define your core. They do not have the final say over your inner state. There is a deeper part of you that remains steady, even when everything else feels unstable, and that is the part that God protects. As you continue to heal, you may start to notice moments where you feel a sense of calm that seems to come out of nowhere. Moments where, despite everything you've been through, you feel grounded, centered, even peaceful. Those moments are not random. They are glimpses of what has always been yours. They are reminders that your peace was never truly gone. It was only waiting for you to reconnect with it. And the more you nurture that connection, the stronger it becomes. The more you choose to turn inward, rather than seeking validation from others, the clearer your sense of peace becomes. You begin to rely less on external approval and more on internal stability. You begin to trust yourself again. You begin to feel safe within your own presence. This is where true restoration begins, not by changing what happened, but by changing how you understand it. Instead of seeing yourself as someone who lost something valuable, you begin to see yourself as someone who was temporarily disconnected from something that was always yours. And that shift in perspective is powerful because it transforms you from a victim of loss into a person of rediscovery. Your peace was never theirs to take because it was never theirs to hold in the first place. It does not belong to their actions, their words, or their approval. It belongs to God, and because of that, it remains intact beyond everything you have experienced. So even if you are still in the process of healing, even if you still feel moments of confusion or emotional weight, remind yourself of this truth. What you are searching for is not something new. It is something eternal. It is something that has been with you all along. And as you continue forward, you are not chasing peace. You are returning to it, step by step, breath by breath, until it becomes your reality once again. The pain you experienced is preparation, not destruction. At first, that idea can feel almost impossible to accept, because when you're in the middle of emotional pain, especially the kind that comes from manipulation, betrayal, or deep psychological harm, it doesn't feel like preparation. It feels like loss. It feels like something inside you has been damaged, maybe even permanently. You may look at yourself and feel like you're not the same person anymore, and in many ways that's true. But the difference is this: you have not been destroyed, you have been reshaped. Pain has a way of breaking illusions. Before the experience, you may have trusted more easily, believed in people more deeply, and expected honesty where there was none. You may have given your energy freely, without realizing that not everyone values what you carry. When the pain came, it didn't just hurt you, it revealed things you couldn't see before. It exposed patterns, behaviors, and truths that were hidden beneath the surface. And while that exposure was painful, it was also necessary for your growth. Preparation often feels uncomfortable because it requires change. It requires you to let go of old versions of yourself that can no longer protect you at the level you need. The version of you that entered that painful situation is not the version of you that will walk out of it. And that is not a loss, that is an evolution. You are becoming someone who sees more clearly, who understands more deeply, and who carries a different kind of strength. When you go through something like this, you begin to develop awareness that cannot be taught in any other way. You start to recognize red flags that you once ignored. You begin to trust your instincts instead of doubting them. You learn the importance of boundaries, not as a way to push people away, but as a way to protect your peace. These are not small changes. These are foundational shifts that will shape every relationship and decision you make moving forward. It's important to understand that preparation does not mean the pain was deserved or necessary in a moral sense. It means that despite what happened, something meaningful can still come from it. God does not waste your pain. Even when the situation itself was harmful, the outcome does not have to be. There is a difference between what was done to you and what will come from it. One was outside of your control, but the other is part of a greater process that is still unfolding. There is also a strength that begins to form within you, quietly at first. It doesn't always feel powerful in the beginning. Sometimes it feels like exhaustion, like you're just trying to get through the day. But even in that, something is building. You are learning endurance. You are learning how to stand on your own emotionally. You are learning how to rebuild yourself without depending on someone who once made you feel whole. And that kind of strength is not temporary. It becomes a part of who you are. Over time, you may start to notice that the things which once triggered you don't have the same effect anymore. Situations that would have caused anxiety or confusion begin to feel more manageable. You respond differently, think differently, and most importantly, you value yourself differently. That is not destruction. That is transformation. That is evidence that the pain is serving a purpose beyond what you initially saw. Another part of this preparation is clarity. When you are no longer in the middle of the chaos, you begin to see things for what they truly were. You understand the dynamics of what happened, not from a place of self-blame, but from a place of awareness. You see how certain patterns developed, how certain boundaries were crossed, and how your own needs were overlooked. This clarity is not meant to hurt you further. It is meant to guide you forward. It becomes a filter that helps you make better choices, form healthier connections, and protect your energy in ways you couldn't before. There is also a deeper connection to yourself that begins to form. When you've been through something that forced you to question everything, including your own identity, the process of rebuilding becomes very personal. You begin to ask yourself what you truly want, what you truly value, and what you are no longer willing to tolerate. You begin to define yourself, not based on someone else's perception, but based on your own truth. And that kind of self-awareness is one of the most powerful outcomes of any painful experience. Preparation also means that what you went through is equipping you for something ahead. It may be healthier relationships, stronger boundaries, or even the ability to help others who are going through similar situations. Your experience gives you insight that cannot be learned from books or advice alone. It gives you a voice that carries authenticity, because it comes from something you have actually lived through. The key is to not let the pain convince you that it has ended your story. Pain has a voice, and sometimes it tells you that you are broken, that you are less than you were, that you will never fully recover. But that voice is not the truth. The truth is quieter, but it is stronger. It tells you that you are still here, still growing, still capable of becoming something even greater than before. The pain you experienced is preparation, not destruction, because it is shaping you into someone who is more aware, more resilient, and more aligned with what truly matters. It is not taking you away from your purpose. It is guiding you toward it, even if the path feels unclear right now. And one day, when you look back, you will see that what felt like an ending was actually a turning point. You will see that the version of you who walked through that pain is not weaker, but wiser, not broken, but rebuilt, not destroyed, but prepared for a life that requires a deeper kind of strength, a clearer kind of vision, and a peace that cannot be easily shaken again. God restores not just what was lost, but something greater. This is a truth that has the power to shift your perspective entirely, because it moves you from a mindset of scarcity to one of abundance. When someone hurts you, steals your peace, or disrupts your life, it is natural to focus on what was taken. You feel the absence deeply. You feel the hollow spaces where joy, confidence, and calm once lived. And in those moments, it is easy to think that restoration means simply getting back to where you were before. But God's restoration is never about returning to the old version of yourself. It is about bringing you into something bigger, something better, something you could not have imagined before the trials came. When you experience deep emotional pain, especially at the hands of someone who manipulated or abused you, you might feel limited in your ability to see beyond the immediate hurt. The human mind naturally latches onto loss because it wants to make sense of what happened, and it wants security in knowing it can recover. But God's restoration works differently. God sees beyond what you lost. God sees the potential that was always inside you, the resilience that was dormant, and the strength that was waiting to emerge. Restoration from God is not just a replacement, it is a transformation. Think about what it means to restore something. Restoration implies repair, healing, and renewal. But when God restores, it is not a mere repair. It is a renewal that surpasses the original state. Imagine a vase that has been shattered. Human hands might glue the pieces together, returning it to its former shape. But God doesn't stop there. God's restoration is like reforging that vase with gold filling the cracks, turning it into something even more beautiful and valuable than it was before it was broken. The pain, the loss, the suffering, they do not disappear, but they become part of the beauty, part of the depth, part of the wisdom that now defines you. This is why, when God restores, the outcome is often unexpected by human standards. You may have expected to simply return to normal, But what comes instead is a stronger, wiser, and more grounded version of yourself. You gain insight that could never have been acquired without the struggle. You develop empathy for yourself and for others. You see life in a new light. Your boundaries become clearer. Your voice becomes stronger. And your sense of self becomes unshakable. The restoration is not a mere patch. It is an elevation, a breakthrough, a renewal of identity and purpose. Another key element of God's restoration is that it comes in alignment with your true self. Loss caused by a narcissist or a toxic relationship often pulls you away from who you were meant to be. You may have lost peace, confidence, or a sense of direction, but God's restoration brings you back to the essence of who you are, while adding dimensions you never had before. It's as if the setback was designed to create room for growth that you could not have achieved otherwise. What was lost becomes the platform from which your higher self emerges. The process of restoration also involves reclaiming power that was taken from you. When someone robs you of your peace or manipulates you, they make you feel weak, dependent, or unworthy. But God's restoration restores authority over your own life. You begin to see yourself not as a victim of circumstances, but as a person with a voice, with boundaries, and with a claim on the life you deserve. The restoration is both internal and external. It changes how you feel about yourself and how you interact with the world. You are restored with greater clarity, and you are given a renewed ability to protect the life and peace that is rightfully yours. God's restoration also has a ripple effect. It is not limited to you alone. When your peace, purpose, and strength are restored, it impacts those around you. Your healing becomes a model for others who have faced similar pain. Your story, once marked by loss, becomes a story of hope and resilience. You begin to live proof that what was taken from you was never permanent, and that what God gives in return is not only sufficient but abundant. The beauty of this restoration is that it cannot be predicted or controlled by human hands. The narcissist may have thought they had the power to diminish your spirit, to keep you small, to keep you dependent on them or fearful. But God's restoration does not operate under human logic or manipulation. It is sovereign, deliberate, and intentional. The restoration that comes from God surpasses anything the world could have taken or imagined for you. So even when you feel broken, even when you feel like the pain was too great, remember that what is coming is greater than what was lost. What God restores will not just fill the empty spaces, it will expand them. What God restores will not just return you to where you were, it will elevate you to where you were always meant to be. Every tear, every struggle, every moment of doubt, and every night of feeling overwhelmed is becoming part of a larger tapestry, a story that God is weaving to reveal your strength, your resilience, and your purpose in ways that are more magnificent than you could ever have conceived. Restoration is not only about reclaiming what the narcissist took, it is about receiving something richer, fuller, and more aligned with your divine purpose. Your peace will return, but it will be stronger than before. Your confidence will return, but it will be unshakable. Your clarity will return, but it will be deeper than you ever thought possible. God does not simply return what was stolen. God transforms the loss into a foundation for greater abundance, proving that the best chapters of your life are not in the past but are yet to come.